Good. Thanks so much for having
Thanks.
me.
Thanks for joining us. I'm really excited about this chat on partnering in innovation. So, for those who may not know you, why don't you give us a little bit of an idea of who you are and what you do? And
Yeah, so I've been a professional street performer and uh, in and around Ontario for about 16 years, doing all types of festivals and events with stilt walking, juggling, fire breathing clown, poi spinning, living statue, just all the things. Mostly working with festivals and events. I'm a founder of Incirque, um, and I've been a very proud partner of FEO for I don't know how many years now, a bunch of years.
a bunch of years.
Um, yeah, but you may have typically seen me around either walking on stilts or doing a juggling show like the Lucky Barber Show. I also work as an actor in film and entertainment or film and television. So doing things like creature performance for television, background work, acting, lots of things.
A coat of many colors, just like your sweater.
That's why I can't pick just one. It wouldn't be right.
Today, we're going to be talking about partnering in innovation. So, you are a supplier with FEO. You're a supplier member with FEO. Like you mentioned, you have been for quite a few years. Um, what's it been like for you during this time, during COVID?
I'm not gonna lie, it's been very challenging. Like I know you've been having a lot of conversations with suppliers as well, and some of them have had to close up shop or are just on pause. Uh, Pretty early on in the pandemic, I just looked for whatever way I could be helpful. Sometimes that was just putting out information, trying to gather information as it was changing daily, sometimes multiple times throughout the day. And then looking for any opportunity I could to pivot or be helpful or find some way to take the skills that I already have and apply them somewhere.
So, one of the things during some of the other Tuesday talks that you've attended, you've had some really great insight and feedback for a lot of people. What what do you do with as when people hire you? Do you recommend things? Do you try to get them to um, some ideas that you may have to help them, or is it just on the job that you do that?
Every every event, every activation is always different. I have set things that I typically do. So like I may have a basic thing like a weekend of stilt walking or a weekend of doing the Lucky Barber Show or package blending. That's usually kind of where I start. But from there, it's really understanding what the event is, how it operates, um, what the site plan is like, what the crowd sizes are, and then really trying to find how what I do can support that. Like what are the needs? What are the challenges they've had in the past years? Do they have trouble getting people to reach vendors? Is there just kind of a hole in the activation? Do they really need something that has a central focus somewhere in the site, somewhere that draws people? And then really trying to develop a plan together.
How how can how can our festivals work more closely with suppliers? I mean, I think you guys, everybody, the event organizer, the suppliers, all have your feet on the street. But most of our suppliers are at multiple events during the year. So, what knowledge do you bring? Can you impart with them? Like, how can you partner with your festivals, and how can your
Yeah.
festivals partner with you?
Uh, One of I think one of the biggest hurdles that I have right off the top is someone asking, "Great, can you give me a quote?" Okay, a quote on what? Like how many days, how many hours, how many people? And really what it is that I'm trying to understand is what does your event look like and what is it that we can bring together? I love when I love when a client brings me their challenges and their questions and they say we really have trouble with this, we really have trouble with this. And then from there, we can kind of engineer something together of, you know, what a package that actually supports not only giving them entertainment programming, but something that solves their challenges in real time. Because I come as someone with 16 years of experience in entertainment, in roaming acts, in shows, in statues. I've seen a lot of stuff all over the world. I've also programmed a festival myself. So when I'm up on the stilts, I look around and I see there's a pinch point over here. This needs to be moving. This is happening over here. There's no one really engaging these vendors. Let's see if we can draw some people in and just be a Pied Piper. So understanding those things kind of from the start really helps me to say, this is what I can do, but also I can pivot on the fly. When I see something happening, I can really try to adapt.
So you're more than just a busker. You're more than just a circus artist. You because you have more of an aerial view of the event, you can see things that the organizers can't always see.
Yeah, it's kind of like being a traffic copter and a performer at the same time, but you know, we got to build up on the I-95. But really, but everyone in this industry, everyone, like we were talking about, I think it was just last week or maybe the week before, everyone comes with such a wealth of knowledge, so many different things that they do. They wear a lot of hats, and when I'm wearing my performer hat, my producer hat is still operating in the background, trying to understand what's happening.
So what's the festival landscape look like in this past year?
A lot of wide open, just wide open. There hasn't been a lot. I think the industry was very largely put on pause, but there have been things happening. I think a lot because our timeline to plan has to happen so far out. Just a lot couldn't happen for this year or had to be deferred until potentially next year. But a lot of things did happen. Port Credit BIA, I don't know if anyone's on the call from there, but they launched a 4-week marketing campaign, which was really one of the first things that I saw and I experienced, which was like an event. They had a car show all up and down the street. They had small bands stationed all the way up. And we launched my physical distancing officer, which is actually kind of like a crossing guard character that does clowning, but really helps reinforce COVID protocols as well throughout the site, making sure people are distant, wearing masks, and also really helping to just break down that anxiety about returning to public and what can we do? How can we safely reconnect? So that over 4 weeks, I actually started to see the transition happen. Richmond Hill also did they had a virtual opening for a new arena and park space around. It was like a whole recreation center. So they did a hybrid. They had an in-person press conference, and then they did a virtual program. So we actually did some scripted programming together so that when they released the footage to the public, they also had a virtual program to go along with it. There's also
and you were part of that?
Yeah, I actually, I have, it's somewhere on here. I apologize to the fire.
Very cozy.
It's very cozy. Oh, you know what? It's not going to let me do it. That's all right. But we actually did, I was part of that. I actually have footage in the background somewhere. It's just not showing up right now. There's also been drive-in, drive-through events happening. So I know one just happened over the weekend. We just did a drive-through Santa Claus parade with Pelham. And before that, we did Niagara Falls Santa Claus parade. I know Laurie's on the call as well. So we did a reverse parade there as well. So people have been adapting and finding ways to still make things happen, whether it's through all virtual or all in person, or finding a way to blend the two. I think places, depending on, I know everyone has different restrictions based on the region, but everyone's trying to still been finding ways to to find ways to connect and engage their communities.
Yeah. Yeah, we've noticed that with FEO and lots of questions that we've had about virtual events, the right platform, etc. Um, so are in-person, there's not many in-person events like inside or outside. So what does that look like for you as a supplier?
I mean, typically in this time of year during the summer season, every weekend would be fully booked. And then there'd be some scattered things throughout the week. Even right now would be a lot of Santa Claus parades, for tree lightings, holiday fair in the square, which is an awesome outdoor market in Nathan Phillips Square. I know Mackenzie's on the call. That's Sports Epilepsy Toronto. It's, just going from one thing to another. It's meant that this year there's just not as much. But it's also meant that for me as a supplier, I've had to adapt and build infrastructure to do what my clients are doing. So if they're doing a drive-through parade, it's how can I support that? I'm, as a still performer, doing what I do with the background that I do, it was ideally suited to it. When virtual programming came up, I had to quickly learn how to do virtual programming and slowly adding in things like lighting and, how can I make it look better? At first, it was just moving everything out of my living room and creating a blank stage. And, kind of like our first Zoom calls, they maybe didn't look great, but slowly started to build more and more. And when it came to like the virtual Canada days, for instance, I worked with, again, Lori from Niagara Falls. They were doing a virtual program. So I was like, great, I could do a commission of a specific juggling show that's part of that programming that fits these blocks of time.
So you did juggling for them on virtually?
Yeah, so I have a busking show that I do where I stand on boots of nails and juggle knives. So what I did was I adapted it to fit the Canadian theme. I was dressed in a Mountie jacket, and it was how Canadians are tough as nails, and just kind of adapted that into the. So I mean, as a supplier, it's just been kind of what we always do, but just like a complete reinvention. It's how can we support what it is that you're doing, because we're all kind of learning. And I mean, some festivals may have a playbook from 25 years of best practices of when this happens, we do this. This hasn't really happened except for maybe some of the fall fairs that have been around for like 125 years,
But not in our lifetime.
But certainly not in our lifetime, and certainly not a thing that I thought would ever happen. I was not prepared for it.
Yeah, I don't think any of us were. But how hard was it for you to turn on a dime on this one? Did you find it difficult, or?
It was challenging because I didn't really have a lot of the things to start. It was kind of fitting things together piecemeal. It was really understanding what it is at the core of what I do and why I do it. And I think that's where like the physical distancing officer came from. It was really understanding what at the basic level it is, and then how can that be helpful right now. It was also just very personally challenging. Right now, I don't think any of us are operating at the same capacity that we normally can.
Right.
A lot of us are either in survival mode or sustaining mode. The news just said this morning that 1 in 4 Canadians are experiencing moderate to severe anxiety. It's kind of with the second wave, we're experiencing a resurgence, and a lot of us maybe don't even understand that. It's typically this time of year I do this and I do this and I do this, but we're all still kind of coping at the same time. Like I did a Lambton Mall a week or two ago, and I found it just a lot more draining doing the physical distancing officer there than when I normally do the 10-foot tall elf, just because I'm doing a lot more in having to maintain boundaries and having to encounter other people's boundaries, and just knowing that I'm working through a pandemic. It's still difficult.
Yeah, yeah. I was just thinking, you should go to Costco and because they have the space for your stilts, and be a physical distancing person there. Because at our Costco, they had somebody walking around with a cart saying, keep your 6 feet distant, and it was like, yeah,
Well, and there are definitely very real applications for that, like whether it's in an open space like a BIA or in a mall. I have worked in a Costco in the past, not necessarily as a performer, but doing experiential marketing things. And that is like marketing meets American Gladiators. Like that's it's intense. It's cost. I mean, anyone who has a Costco card in this call, like raise your hand if you know that it is not for the faint of heart. That's yeah, yeah.
yep, yeah, I get it. I get it. You talked about mental health. So
Yes.
one of the things you and I had talked about was juggling mental health. How do you do that?
That's so juggling mental health was actually another idea that came early on when grant opportunities started to come out. And an idea that I had was to put together a YouTube series teaching basic juggling tutorials along with basic mental health. Like I live with anxiety, depression, and panic disorder. And a thing that I didn't realize was as I was building my new show, the Lucky Barber Show, I was also starting to understand my own mental health and starting to do CBT and going to therapy. So as I was building these different skill sets and different things, they were actually kind of informing each other. So I put out a grant to the Ontario government and to the federal government. And I didn't get the grant money, but I decided to do it anyways. And Jake, who is on the call, also helped so much with that as well. And what we did was we put together a series of YouTube videos. So each thing is a lesson of a basic juggling tutorial, along with some interesting facts. And I kind of started to even understand more for myself how juggling was helping my anxiety and depression when I didn't realize it, because it's kind of a trick. And I got 4 basic things that I do, because normally I keep juggling balls around pretty much wherever I'm working, because it's a great intervention tool. So one thing is, if you're experiencing anxiety, is to understand an intervention that works well for you, whether it's breathing, whether it's playing Bejeweled on your phone or juggling, just finding something that gives you something to stop that feeling of building anxiety or that spiraling. And this is a great one for me, because what it does is it actually tricks me into having to breathe. When I start juggling, it actually makes my breathing drop more. It increases my heart rate. So then oxygen is starting to go other places in my body. And it actually brings me present, where I'm not thinking about the future and the past.
And it also has you focus on what you're doing as opposed to the panic attack, right? Or the
Exactly. Yeah, because
yeah.
that your brain can start to build into the story, and that can continue that spiral where you just keep going down and down and down. Whereas this really brings you into the moment and just makes you focus on that ball that's in the air. The other thing that it does is it helps you to get momentum. Whereas if you think, if I can do one thing right now, then maybe I can do something else. And then maybe if I can do that other thing, then maybe I can do another thing and another thing. The other thing juggling taught me was that it taught me how to transition, because sometimes I can get stuck in my head on one thing, that if I see success happening in one very specific way, and if it doesn't happen that way, I may not see the opportunities that are coming or see where momentum in life is going. So if I just learned how to transition easily and just go with what's already happening, then I can actually start to know that change is easy, because life doesn't usually happen the way that we expect it to.
Yeah.
Just like the TV, you know, it's nice to have a virtual fireplace, but I had some things in behind. You got to go with the momentum.
Yeah.
That's
And that's hard for many of us to kind of, it's a practice skill, I would say, that you have to teach yourself to get into a different frame of mind. Like, teach yourself to reach for your juggling balls or whatever tool it is that you need to get you out of that.
building your mental health skills and supports is just like juggling. It is a practice, just like you said. The more you practice, the more you may start to remember to implement these things or get better at it. It may not be a complete fix the first time. It may just buy you time. But the other thing is that practicing, whether you're successful or not, it does start to build gray and white matter in your brain. An Oxford study actually concluded this. So gray matter is for understanding our surroundings and how we move through it. And white matter is for visual, visual motor functioning. So when you study or when you practice, the Oxford study actually showed that it started to build this matter in your brain. So it's not always whether or not you're actually juggling perfectly. You think, I have to be perfect at this in order to get the benefit. Even just practicing it has a benefit. And same thing with mental health coping skills. If you're using an intervention, whether or not it works perfectly or solves the what you're experiencing at the time, there's value in that practice because it is starting to become more and more a part of how you function with it. So you have another tool in the toolbox.
It's like walking too. I mean, just getting out and going for a walk when you're going down the rabbit hole.
When I learned to walk on stilts, I didn't take my first step right away. The first day was just standing up, feeling really wobbly, like you're a toddler, and sitting back down. Everything built with time, and everything that I did came with more ease and more control. And then I started to learn how to do high kicks and other things. It's a practice. And if you think of it that way and give yourself that compassion and gratitude for the fact that it is a helpful thing for you, you know, you can start to change your relationship with that and your own mental health as well.
Patience is all part of that too, right? Because I don't know about you, but I'm kind of someone who wants to start something and think I should be an Olympian by stepping onto the field, and get frustrated when I can't even make it, 2 feet down the sidewalk.
Well,
And
yeah. And that's a cognitive distortion, isn't it? It's the all or nothing. It's
yeah,
if I don't try something and I'm not perfect at it the first time, then there's no point in doing it or I'll never get it.
yeah.
Juggling is actually something I learned later in my life. I was probably like 21, 22 when I learned to juggle. I learned to walk on stilts when I was 19, and both of those things made a huge change in my life. So whether you're learning it, as a child, or whether you're learning it later on as an adult, there's a lot of benefit to it. I saw Janet popped in and she's been watching the videos, which by the way are on my website and on YouTube. You can just click the Juggling Mental Health tab there.
Jay's posted them as well
Oh, awesome.
on the chat.
There's value in just trying it, and it doesn't have to be a thing that you do every day. It doesn't have to be a thing you practice for 1 to 2 hours. Typically 5 to 10 minutes a day. If you want, just pick it up and practice it, or take it up and leave it as you need it. What's great is finding what really works for you. Just playing with my niece over the weekend, she has all these little games. So that made me remember that Bejeweled was something that, oh yeah, I haven't actually had this on my phone forever, but you just do the Zen mode, so there's no timing, and it's just like, oh yeah, 20 minutes of Bejeweled goes by pretty quick, and I notice I'm more grounded. So there's just another thing. It might work some days, it might not.
Right. You got to find your sweet spot, right?
I like it. Yeah, exactly. That's
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? I'd love to open it up to the participants and get questions going. And
well, yeah. I mean, before we open it up, I think there's one thing I would definitely encourage is right now, regardless of what you're planning, is reach out to your suppliers. Really reach out to say what it is that you're planning. These are people that you've been problem solving with and building relationships with for years. So if you have challenges in this coming year, they may have solutions. Like there are things that I've been seeing, and you know, as we open up questions, I may see if I can get to some of the visuals in the back. But things like directions, you know, having directional separations for, you know, through Blue Mountain Village, they have some really awesome on the ground separation where, you know, traffic moves this way over here and this way over here. So whether that's, you know, fencing people or whether those are printers that you've worked with for years, for entertainment suppliers, you know, find out what you can do and commit to a plan for this year and be ready to pivot on a dime. If you're planning to do an in-person, if you're planning to do a hybrid, or if you're planning to do all virtual, you know, talk to those suppliers and make a commitment to work together, because knowing that no matter what happens, that you're going to still make something happen together will go a long way.
And
yeah.
some of those suppliers like you are investing time and education and sometimes money into adapting to this new culture that we have.
Yeah, throughout this year, like I've tried to learn as much as I can. I've had to learn a little bit more about broadcasting through the internet. Like I was a volunteer with a cable station way back, and I can tell you it's not the same technology. I kind of had to relearn everything again. Had to get things like lighting, adapting props, and even just adapting my show to how can this fit more into this type of format instead of having a circle of people around me. So the more that you can invest it in each other, it doesn't just mean that things are going to happen this year. It means that we're all going to be there together as a community after this. And I hope that's something that we can do in this chat afterwards, is coming with your questions, coming with your own experiences, or even your own wins that you've had this year, is that as a community of these experienced festival professionals, that we can help learn from each other and make sure that we're all there together after this.
Absolutely. So feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions, or put your questions in the chat and I'll read them out to Kyle. And, you know, are there any challenges that you have experienced as well? And, or as Kyle says, war stories that you've been able to overcome? So leaving it up to you guys.
Yeah, jump in anytime, please.
Lisa, did you have something?
No, I don't have a question.
Okay.
Also, okay. Like one thing I will jump in with is just some of the examples of things that, you know, maybe we might expect for this year. So like, I know the first vaccination rollouts happened yesterday. So they're saying that there may be that they're aiming for 70% vaccination rate in order to reach that immunity level. We may or may not reach that by the summer, especially since there has to be two phases. But I know some events are planning on an in-person component this year, whether or not it's they're just not sure what it's going to look like yet. Like I know Southside Shuffle, who I've worked with for a lot of years, they've announced that they're going to be doing an in-person, but there will be COVID protocols. So some ideas that we've seen at different events throughout this year are things like the circles in the grass. Like, I don't know if you guys can see that there very well or not.
No.
Okay. But circles in the grass are a great way of making sure that people stay in their bubbles. I'm pretty sure Amherstburg did something like that this year, where they had some entertainment happening in by a gazebo, and they just had the grass sectioned off so people could stay within their bubbles. Blue Mountain Village, that's, oh gosh, yeah, I did this yesterday when it wasn't so sunny, but they have the directionality on the ground. They have actual markers going. And another thing to consider for this year is to just have wide open space. Just have a lot of space around so that people have room to move, or maybe even think about doing a series of things. When we did the Port Credit BIA Classic Car Thursdays over 4 weeks. The Southside Shuffle was planning on doing an all virtual program. They saw the success of the Classic Car Thursdays and then decided to jump in and help extend it 2 more weeks. So they actually had an in-person component and brought out some blues music in addition to the bands that were already happening there. So they kind of had a hybrid model going along the way. So, you know, those are some things to maybe think about this year.
Jake has a question about juggling mental health. Has producing these videos helped or affected your own mental health experience in any way? And what takeaways did you have from creating the series?
That's a great question. Thanks, Jake. It has definitely impacted my own understanding of my own mental health. It's helped to reinforce a lot of the things that I was learning, but it was kind of surprising to me because I really, in writing the videos, and Jake really helped me write a lot of the videos as well. I really tried to be truthful in what I was experiencing and what I was learning, what the experience of living with anxiety is like. And I did find it surprising along the way, some of the things, or really tried to, even as we were shooting, be like, no, this doesn't feel right. What is a better way to say this? Or what is it that I'm actually feeling that I'm trying to express? But I think one of the biggest takeaways from the experience of doing the videos and just the experience that we learned through the videos altogether is that it is a practice. In building each of the videos, one really tries to build on the other. Even throughout, you'll see that the videos, the format kind of changes a little bit. They kind of start to become a bit more fun. They kind of start to get these side interesting facts and things along the way. Everything really does build. Yeah.
Okay. And I just wanted to say that if you're on, because I suffer from it too. I have, and I find that if I'm not diligent with my medication, I can go south pretty quickly. I've got a lot of other things that I practice, but it's really important to be diligent with everything that you're doing, whether it's medication, whether it's walking, whether it's exercise, juggling, whatever it is that you're doing, to keep yourself balanced. And I think that's a challenge for those of us who go through that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Lisa says, have you noticed any changes to agreements or insurance requirements required of you with the in-person events you have done this year?
That's a great question. I haven't noticed anything so far. I will be renewing my insurance at the end of the year. And as I haven't seen any changes to anything so far. But I think that's going to be part of each of our understandings together this year, is that we're kind of entering into a year where we experienced something this year that we never experienced before. When I started out, we didn't really need liability insurance. It was only if you were using fire. And then it was only certain municipalities. And then it was, now I just carry $5 million liability across the board. It's just, I would rather have it than not have it. Some people still need it and some people don't. Even if I'm just busking, I'm usually a regular busker down at Toronto Harbourfront. And they also, I think, require still, it's just a 2 million, but I'd rather go above and beyond. So I think this year is, that's going to be in the contracts that we have to build together. Like have you experienced anything that you've, I don't know if you're with a municipality or, but like, are you getting any direction saying that you're going to be looking for anything?
I do work with a municipality, so we always do ask. That's why I always have insurance on the brain.
Yeah.
We haven't done anything in person this year. We're hoping to possibly start next summer, and that's something we're looking into, but we haven't figured out what we'll be asking for yet.
Right. I mean, so looking for performers, obviously, who have insurance and can get be listed as additional insured is probably great. I haven't noticed anything. Obviously, I'm not an insurance expert. I'm just a performer and supplier. But I think that's going to be a journey that we're all taking together and understanding as we go. But one of the great things with working with FEO suppliers is you'll know and have the confidence that you have those professionals there and have the experience. So as you experience things along the way, you know that you'll be solving those challenges together.
Janet says, what did Janet say? The conversations about mental health and live events are really important, and I hope that as events come back, we'll be able to maintain this kind of openness and compassion for each other. I agree, Janet.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things I've mentioned in a past video is that I've really appreciated these Tuesday talks because they've been helpful for me because it brings a regular thing in my weekly calendar, but it also helps to bring that sense of community connection. And I think we're all looking for those connections right now. And the more that we can rely on each other, I know that a lot of us may feel like we've been in the dark this year, like we're having to react to information and to choices that are made, and we all just have to deal with them accordingly. But we really have a community here. FEO is really a strong advocacy group that has been coordinating with the government to try and help get things in place. Whether it's, we've been, FEO's been sharing reopening guides when the time does come. So just really relying on the community that we have and knowing that you're not in it alone. A lot of other people in the call here may be trying to build a plan for this year as well. And the more that we can share those challenges and questions and, build solutions together. I know when I was planning a festival, there was a new fire chief who really didn't want to have fire performance. But when I came in armed with knowledge of international standards and how other festivals do it in other regions in the province, and showed them what protocols we're going to do, and even set up a practice burn where they could see how the performers were feeling, all these things. Also, just like, okay, great. That's all we need to, that we just need to know that there's a plan in place and that we can ensure that it's safe.
Anything else? Oh, something else here. I'm also a sole proprietor, a health and safety consultant, and I agree with the need to be well insured. It helps me sleep at night.
I think
part of mental health.
Yeah, anything that can help us sleep better at night, and that's one of those things is having insurance, working with people who are experienced, who can adapt. I think that's one of the, I have to give a shout out to buskers because we always have to adapt. Some days it's raining, some days there's something on the pitch that you don't expect, or you have to go do a show somewhere else. The spirit of entrepreneurship is really built into being a busker and doing what we can to make things happen effectively. Even drive-through parades. Like I know from the start it was building a playbook from scratch. And as they've started to go on, we've started to see great things like timed entries, online registrations, so that that you're hitting a certain limit. I've seen 38-second intervals so that the cars are really going and nicely spaced out, and they end up, some of them, in 5-car blocks. Everything is built as we go. We usually have a wealth of experience in doing these things. We're all kind of rebuilding new playbooks.
That we are. Is there anything else, Kyle, for you?
Oh my gosh. I think, I mean, there is a lot there's a lot more. Um, but I think we're still at the start and still understanding, like normally this time of year, I know we'd be having conversations together about planning, booking for the coming year. I would probably have half my summer booked right now and probably plan like locking in the next half at FEO conference. Um, but I think I would really encourage opening the lines of communication and reaching out to your suppliers, seeing who is still there, what your plans may be for the coming year, and seeing how you can build that plan together, making commitments together so that they can kind of start to have an idea even of what the revenue might be for this year. Because I know we're all going to have a multi-year recovery ahead. And I know you're maybe still waiting for direction as well. If you're with a municipality, you may be waiting for direction from the city or from the town on what the restrictions might be. But I've been having conversations already with some festival partners in maybe what formats might look like. If you have a restriction, is there a timed entry people move through, and then there's another time slot that resets? Or maybe that restriction might be lifted by the time that things come around. But yeah, it's I would really encourage just reaching out, continuing that communication, and knowing that we will all be on the other side of this.
I agree. And, reach out to FEO if you have any questions, if you have any information, if there's anything that you need from us, let us know, and we'll try to help you out.
Yeah, and there are some programs that are still coming out. Like I know Reconnect TO. I know they've got that program is open right now, I think, for another few weeks. And I think it's connected with Celebrate Ontario. But just looking at what programs are out there, Toronto also just had an activation winter program that the deadline just closed on a little while ago to just bring people back into the area safely. So that there may be opportunities there as well. And if you're looking at building a grant or what may be possible, reaching out to suppliers, to entertainers, looking at ambient entertainment, things that maybe don't necessarily draw everyone in, but can help keep people spread apart or give people lots of points of interest throughout the space. We can really build a program like that together so you can go in with a strong proposal.
Wonderful. And Anne says, thank you, Kyle, for bringing awareness to mental health and for being so open. So yes, thank you, because that's some things, many of us don't really like to talk about. So
there's still a lot of stigma around it. And I know for myself too, there was a lot of stigma and a lot of unlearning, but mental health is health. It's just that simple. Mental health affects our physical health. It affects our experience throughout the day. And really, there's no shame in it. If someone asked where you were going that day and you said, "Oh, I got to go to the dentist office to get a cavity filled," it can be just that simple. Whether you're living with anxiety or depression or, whether medication is part of your daily plan, it's just health. And really, we are all in this together. And this year has been especially challenging. But again, it's showed us, I think, our need for connection, our need for compassion for one another. And if there's one thing that festivals and events really do, it brings us together and shows us how we're all connected rather than how we're apart, what we all share together. So the sooner that we can get these things back safely so that we can have that connection again, I know it will not only just be better for the world, but it will be better for our own understanding of ourselves as well.
What a great statesman you are.
That's I don't know. I think I kind of lost my point somewhere along the way there, and I had to find it back.
That's okay. Well, thank you so much, Kyle. I thank everybody for joining us. This is our last Tuesday Talks for 2020. And but we'll be seeing you in January. And I want to thank you all so much for coming, listening, supporting us, and have a happy holiday, everyone.
And I do have some milk and cookies left, so if you guys want to stick around and have a chat after, I'm happy to stick around for a little bit. Don't
teleporting. That's the next one. Teleporting.
Yeah. Don't make me eat all the cookies myself. I've been doing a little bit of COVID eating.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye. Happy holidays. Thanks.